Have you heard of the 90-second rule? It only takes 90 seconds to change the emotion in your body. 90 seconds. And as you're pausing here, kind of curious of where I'm at right now, this is helping to shift your mind, shift where you've been throughout the day. And it only takes 90 seconds. And that's what Sam Kabert talks about in my podcast episode. Also, he unpacks his amazing 6-step breathe process, which is so easy and accessible. You can do it anywhere, anytime. So take 90 seconds. This is less than 90 seconds that you're watching or listening to, and choose to start living with intention. I'll see you there.
Well, hello and welcome back, new and true friends. Our last series, we talked about intuition and how tapping into our own intuition helps to let go of any disruptive thoughts, helps to balance our mind and body connection, so that way we can make better choices. We then can become inspired, right, to trust ourselves and to take those leaps of faith because we know that we're in a good place of alignment and connected to our authentic self. So this is why I've invited Sam Kabert here today with us. And a little bit about Sam before we get into all the good things that he has to share with us. He spent the early part of his career chasing success, and in the process was named Silicon Valley's 40 under 40 at just the age of 31 years old. So that's pretty powerful, right? But despite building that $1 million business, Sam realized that he was unfulfilled and was lacking a deeper purpose to his life. And since 2019, Sam has courageously embraced a transformational path of self-discovery. And he does this by centering his focus and prioritizing on mental health. And that's what I'm all about well-being and balancing the mind and body. So this actually helped Sam through his own transformation, right, to build a practice of soul life balance. And he brings this forward to talk about how to overcome overwhelm with a 6-step breathe process, which I'm really excited for him to unpack that for us today. As Sam is on a mission to teach the tools to overcome overwhelm while encouraging the rise of compassionate leadership to eradicate the glorification of the hustle culture. And I think we can all relate to that wonderful monkey mind of the hustle, keep us going, keep us on that hamster wheel. So this is going to be very refreshing to have Sam here with us to hopefully inspire you for his practices. So welcome, Sam. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, April. I'm so excited to unpack all of this with you.
So much good stuff, and we have so little time, but this is why we have your links, right, in the description and things so people can reach out to you afterwards. So, Sam, I just read that little bio of yours, and wow, I mean, just that big shift from that hustle from $1 million company into shifting into mental health. What was that pivotal point for you? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, it was 5 years to almost a month at this point at the time of the recording. And it's funny because now, like February, we're in April now at the time of the recording, but it was February. And for the past 2 years, it kind of came back again where it's like, oh, hello, darkness, my old friend. Like it was like, oh, this is very familiar because last year, once again, my world was shifted upside down. And, I think a lot of us felt it on a collective and even astrological level around March of last year. And then it happened again for me this year. And so many people I've been talking with in the past month have been going through it as well. So all of that to say, the first several years of 2020, 2021, 2022 even, those were pretty rock solid, but it was 2019 when like that was the first deep profound spiritual awakening experience. And I've had traumas just like anyone else in my life, right? And I wasn't someone like I would generalize most of us in Western culture that didn't grow up with the tools and resources on
Mm.
how to address those traumas or even, understand that we can't compare our traumas. Because even a year into my journey in 2020, before the lockdowns and all that, I was in a spiritual mastermind and I started looking at a lot of other people being like, oh, wow, these people have way more trauma than me. I don't deserve to be here. And that was such a great lesson for me to learn about, like, from a gnosis, from a felt experience of like, oh, we can't compare our traumas. So I know I didn't directly answer your question in terms of like what happened in 2019, but it was a numbing depression. I talked about it in my book, Soul Life Balance, and so many podcasts and things like that. And a breathwork journey found me, no psychedelics, medicine, or anything else. And I literally felt reborn. It was the most wild thing. I remember writing a blog about it and just like telling everyone about it. Like, I didn't know this was possible. And I was set out to sit with ayahuasca for the first time with the facilitators of that breathwork journey the next week. And that breathwork journey was so profound that I almost didn't sit with ayahuasca. That's how profound that was. I still did sit with ayahuasca, and that was everything that I had heard, like, 12 or 16, whatever years of therapy jam packed into a single night. And
Yes.
after, yeah,
It really gets in
wild.
there, doesn't it?
For sure. Yeah. And after that, I was just like, show me everything. And I never looked back.
Mm.
I changed everything in my life from there.
Oh, I love that. Show me everything. And really we're showing ourselves, aren't we,
Mhm.
on that journey. We're unlearning and learning more about ourselves along the way. And wow, that sounds like a really powerful uh, awakening, really, that you had.
Yeah, at the time I didn't have a lot of other people around me on the path. Now, like the majority of the people I interact with are on the path, except for getting into like keynote speaking and getting back into corporate and like Trojan horsing through mental health and mindfulness, but really like wanting to go deeper. I'm now being exposed to like quote unquote normal people again. And it's like, it's interesting because it's really like living the message of soul life balance, because in a lot of ways I was very heavy on soul or spiritual side. And I also work with plant and earth medicines, meaning I'm an integration guy and do some other deeper work that I don't talk about publicly. Wink, wink. But that said, I see a lot of people that don't necessarily have that big, profound awakening, especially with something like ayahuasca, because there can be a lot of resistance that doesn't allow us to get there. And the main medicine that I work with is bufo, also known as toad medicine. And the majority of the time, like the doses that we work with, it's called threshold dose and it's a full reset. So pretty much everyone is getting that spiritual awakening experience. And it's funny, like I'd say about 80 to 90% of the clients that I coach for psychedelic integration coaching come from Bufo. And a lot of them, their first experience with medicine, like as a ceremony, as opposed to like psychedelic use when they're younger, is from Bufo. And
Mm.
when I first started working with these people, it really like helped me see like, oh wow, like the experiences they're having with Bufo is how I felt with ayahuasca. And like in a lot of ways, like I say ayahuasca is my first love. But yeah.
Yes, yes. And I believe, well, from my own experience with parts of those that you just described, it really takes you out takes you away from the ego, and you can literally feel everything in and around you. Um, it really breaks us open past the shell or the armoring that we've created to protect ourselves because of the trauma, as you shared earlier, Sam. And so this is that inspiration, right? That it's like now you know, and you can't go back. You can't
Yeah.
once you open that door, you can't go back. And would you say that that's your inspiration, right? To bring forward about mental health and wellness so that others can break free from those constraints and that armory that we've built up without even realizing it, right? Because it's like over time, over years and years of conditioning, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm in a fun spot right now because I like to say I'm playing on both sides of the fence because speaking on stage to corporate audiences, right now the largest audience I have spoken to, I think, is 700 people, and the numbers are starting to get more and more. And that 700 person audience, I think everyone was in a suit and tie or that type of attire. So, I do know other speakers who have similar messages to me and are just go just as deep as me, but like their audiences are more like a mindful or mental health or
Mm.
spiritual crowd. Like my audience when I speak is typically more corporate, everyday busy professionals. So I think about it as making you using language that's more accessible and kind of like planting seeds. That's why I call it like a Trojan horse strategy. And then from there, like whether they follow my content or they go and I have a lot of different resources. Maybe they go on these resources or own synchronicities where they meet a mentor and start their hero's journey. There's a ripple effect. And then on the
Mm-hmm.
other side, doing like the deep, deep work one-on-one and group coaching with people working with psychedelics or I mean, I'd say 90% of my coaching clients are working with psychedelics, but any sort of spiritual awakening and then helping them ground and integrate. So it's really interesting to do like the deep work with people and then also like have the opportunity because I'm 2 years into speaking. So, I'm climbing up and it's going to grow and grow, but like to have a larger impact where it's planting these seeds and then just trusting that, for a good percentage of them, they're going to meet their mentor and find their way, you know?
Exactly, just as you did, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really love how you talk about as you're talking about this, as you're connecting with other people, like you're building your community. This is what it's all about is you know um, Russ Hedge said, we're better together. So, yeah, it's great for us to be out there as individuals, such as yourself, reaching out to corporations and things, but coming together, such as on these podcasts or other ways of connecting, you know, amplifies it, as you said, with that ripple effect. And that's the beautiful process. Yeah. So can you break down the six-step breathe process that you've developed? Can you talk a little bit more about that? That's what I'm really excited about
Yeah, me too. Awesome.
because
I'd
I'm a
love to.
breathwork practitioner as well. So it's all about
Oh,
the
cool.
breath. It's all about awareness and witnessing. So this is some really good stuff. So those of you who are listening and driving, come back to this, listen to it again, or check out, Sam's website also.
Yeah, and brand new book, Overcome the Overwhelm, subtitle, The Six-Step Breath Process to Access Inner Peace. So what this is all about is, first, let me tell you what it's not about. It's not about adding anything more to your day. I imagine most of the people listening right now are already have their practices and wouldn't be adverse to adding something more. I specifically created this framework for people like myself, which I think is a lot of us, where we just get caught up in the different things that we need to do. And it's hard to create new time and space for, say, something like TM, 20 minutes twice a day, right? So it's not about adding anything more to your day. It's not about meditating for 20 minutes twice a day. It's not about adding breath work. It's not about journaling or any of these things at all. Literally, it's about cultivating and accessing moment to moment awareness. Because really, whether you're someone that's going super deep with plant medicines or not plant medicines, and you're still going super deep and you're just wanting to feel more clear, what you're
Mhm.
really after is presence. And for the busy professionals that are like, yeah, I'm not into the spirituality, the woo-woo stuff, or the psychedelics or any of that. I just want to not be so stressed out and not have as much anxiety. Because actually, a study showed that by the WHO, the World Health Organization, anxiety is the number one disability right now. And I forget the exact percentage, but I think it's like 77% or something of people are stressed out in America. And in other countries, the average is 50%. Don't quote me on that. It's something similar to that. So we inherently know that we're stressed out, we have anxiety, and that we feel overwhelmed in Western society, but the data is also there to back it up as well. And we all understand this pretty well. So, having said that, the 6 step breath process is an acronym. The word breath is an acronym, and each of the letters has a step. And I break it down into 3 simple phases. The first phase is breathe, the second phase is feel, and the last phase is think intentionally. And I'll walk us through each one of these steps in more depth. I mean, I didn't even say them yet, right? But the idea is that our bodies have a 90-second physiological response when we experience an emotion. This is something that Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor talked about in her TED Talk, I don't know, 15 years ago or something like that. And even I think you and I talked about this the other day, April, like even in yoga trainings or breath work trainings, it's interesting. I've done 2 different yoga certifications and a breath work certification. I just did Reiki over the weekend, and
What?
Reiki, yeah,
Big
you
high
feel.
five. I'm a Reiki master.
I figured you were. I kind of felt that. Yeah, it was day one. We have day two, the final day of like level one this upcoming weekend. And I'd love to talk offline or maybe on my podcast or later on this one about Reiki because I have questions. Maybe I'll just interview you on Reiki. That said, though, in Reiki this past weekend, the facilitator mentioned Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor. And I'm like, oh wow, there we go. She didn't mention the 90-second rule, but she at least referenced her work. And I was like, okay, cool. Because most of the time when I'm connected with a lot of yoga instructors and a lot of breathwork practitioners, and most people don't know about the 90-second rule. And I think I only came across it by doing research on like TED Talks when I was getting into keynote speaking. I was like, whoa. Oh, this is profound. Our bodies have a 90-second chemical response, a 90-second physiological response when we experience an emotion. And the root word or meaning of emotion is energy in motion. So when we put these together, we can so easily see that when we experience an emotion that we don't want to feel, whatever it is, most of us will do anything we can to normally unconsciously, or we could say subconsciously, avoid feeling that feeling, right? And we'll constrict, we'll tighten, we'll distract, we'll numb ourselves so that energy gets stored in the body. Whereas if we
Mhm.
can be like, oh, wow, I'm feeling, for me, I get a lot of anxiety, and that's like manifests as like shortness of breath. I feel like I can't catch my breath. I don't really necessarily have a story to it, but I just notice it. And when I'm not practicing the 6 step breath process, I go to the cupboard, I grab a bag of pistachios, and I start hovering over the trash can and cracking shells of pistachios. And I'm like, what the heck am I doing here after several minutes? Like I can go through a big tall bag and just be like, wow, what was that? Whereas with the 6 step breath process, it's like, okay, something's off. I'm feeling something right now. First step, the be in breath, breathe to slow down. And there's nothing specific about it, just realizing that we're connecting to our breath here. It's not a formal type of breath work yet. We're just understanding what I like to call the 3 rules of breath work, which are inhaling and exhaling through your nose. You can exhale through the mouth if you'd like, but it's more important to make sure the inhale is through the nose, because that will shift you into rest and digest. And elongating those exhales, meaning let the exhales be longer than the inhales. And finally, diaphragmatic breathing. Focus on expanding the belly. Yeah. Do you want to say anything there?
I know that is super important because people are saying, oh, yeah, I'm breathing, but it's that shallow in the upper chest breath. And that keeps us stuck. So that lower diaphragmatic breathing helps to also release toxins, right? Our breath helps to release 70% of our toxins in our bodies. So getting that nice deep breath, as you so perfectly described, Sam, and that longer exhalation really allows us to feel, what's happening with our bodies too.
Exactly. And that goes directly into the second step, which is the R in breath, and that's relax to feel. Right. So now that we're starting to get into somatics here, we've already noticed the trigger. We're like, okay, I'm going to connect with my breath to start to regulate whatever that looks like for you. For most of us, it's just going to be long inhales and exhales and belly breaths, like we just spoke about. But in this second step, we're going to go a little bit deeper. We're going to soften. We're going to relax into it. And this is where I like to encourage people to practice the cyclic sigh. This is a form of breath work that Dr. Andrew Huberman made popular with his study at the Stanford lab, where they did a study comparing different forms of breath work and meditation to find out which of these forms of breath work and or meditation would be most effective to alleviate stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. Not only in the moment, but as they put it, around the clock, meaning it's got benefits throughout your day as well as you go on into the day. And what they found is the process of the practice of the cyclic sigh is more effective than any other form of breath work or meditation to alleviate stress, anxiety, and overwhelm. And I love it because it's absolutely the easiest form of breath work I've ever done. All you do is you inhale all the way up through your nose, you sip in a bit more at the top, and then through the mouth, exhale. And you just keep doing that. Huberman teaches it pretty much like that. When I teach it to people, I add on a few things, and make it more of an experience and a little bit more. But typically, like when I am walking through the 6-step breath process and I want to grab the pistachios and I'm able to catch myself and I start with breathing just to slow down, it might take a few seconds, might take 30 seconds to just like get into that rhythm. And then from there, I'm like, okay, I'm relaxing into it. Now I start to focus on the cyclic sighs. And I did a few different styles of Kundalini trainings recently, and I'm really getting into that in the Kriya Pranayama, where
Mm.
you're squeezing the root and then you're bringing that up to the third eye and then holding that squeeze at the root and then relaxing and releasing the squeeze and kind of doing almost like a box breathing like that. That's something I'll do as well. I don't really teach that. I keep it simple, but that's something I like to bring into my practice. So we can pause there because that's the first phase, as I put it. That is all about breathing. The first phase is breathing, and the first 2 steps: breathe to slow down, relax to feel. What you think?
That's great. I love it. I can't agree with you more on just having that awareness as you talk about the pistachios, even. I think people they're not even aware of like, oh my gosh, I'm almost done with this bag, right? Where did the time go? Where am I even? Where am I as I'm noshing on these, pistachios or whatever they're doing? It's that behavior that we've become conditioned to. So scrolling on the phone, I'm just going to say it, people. It's the same thing as the pistachios. So being able to pause and invite that breath, having that awareness and having that intention of, I'm going to step back right now. I'm noticing where I'm at and I'm not going to have any judgment. I'm just noticing. And okay, I'm going to apply this amazing 6-step breath process and just breathe and relax. And I can't wait to hear the next segment of it, Sam.
Phase 2 is about feeling. And step 3, just to recap, we've breathed to slow down, we've relaxed to feel. Now we're in phase 2 that's going deeper on feeling. And the step 3 is the E in the breath acronym, and that is energy to reveal. This is all about getting curious, being like, okay, I'm feeling this anxiety, I'm feeling this sadness, whatever it is. What is it revealing to me? Is there a story that tends to play on loop? Is there a lesson? Can I get curious? Right. And this is where sometimes I will teach people a little microdose, as I call it, of a breathwork journey, just like a
Mhm.
5-minute practice. Because I know for myself, like, even after all the medicine work and all the breath work and meditation and all the things, if I just go straight into meditation, I'm still like a little fidgety or whatever. But if I do a little bit of breath work and then let that dovetail into my meditation, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, I just dropped in. So, especially for people that have those more active minds, it can be helpful to do a little bit of an activation breath work, like inhaling and exhaling out of the mouth. It's almost like a Wim Hof, something you
Mhm.
can do for a few minutes. And then from there, it just drops you. And now you can really start to get curious about what this energy is revealing to you. And another really good tip here is how to discern our intuition versus when we gaslight ourselves, because we tend to gaslight ourselves a lot, being like, oh, like this energy is revealing XYZ. No, it can't be that. But typically, as you know, as intuitive April, like usually the first thing that comes through is going to be the thing that the message.
It's,
So just stick with that, right?
it's so true. It's so true. And our minds try to talk us out of it because, the box that we created, that it created, keeps us safe, right? And protects us. So yeah, I love that. I love the E, the energy to reveal with, curiosity and asking questions, just feeling it, as you said, and especially inviting a little short breathwork practice to, dissipate all that scattered, static thoughts and energies there.
Totally, absolutely. Yeah, so this at this point is typically for the reason of like when we start to gaslight ourselves, why the next step in the A in the breath acronym is accept to
Mhm.
surrender, because this is when we'll be in resistance. This is when we'll start to get a message that comes through. And then it's I like to bring in IFS work, internal family systems, also known as parts work, because it helps us to discern the different thought forms
Mhm.
in our mind as or voices. And usually between like step 3 and 4, energy to reveal and accept to surrender, is this little like uncomfortable spot where it's like the deep deep part of the shadow work, where it's like, okay, I really need to accept what's being shown to me, because for whatever reason I just don't want to look at that thing. It doesn't matter why. And that's why it's so important that we surrender, because really there's this movement of toxic positivity, and it goes so much more than all the brands being like, be kind, kindness. And like, yeah, that's great, we do want to be kind to one another and we do want to say our positive affirmations, but like, and I'm intentionally, maybe I'm not using, but yeah, I'm going to say, and we also want to do the shadow work here, because if we don't allow ourselves to feel what
Yeah.
is going on within the body on a subconscious level, we're just packing more of that in, and we're just creating more on it. What the idea of this whole process is, it's like a breathwork journey without doing all the deep work of like in and out for 60 minutes of breathing. That's, very intense. It's like, okay, we're just getting straight to the point of surrender, and we're going to accept this story, this lesson, this limiting belief, whatever it is, because if we don't, then we're just going to be like a hamster on a wheel doing the same thing again today, tonight, tomorrow, a week from now, being like, man, every time I go and do this 6-step breath thing, the same thing comes through. And the reason why that would be is because we're not actually allowing ourselves to surrender to what the energy is revealing to us. So
Mhm.
this is where I like to bring in parts work. And internal family systems is a psychotherapy practice that was created by a man named Richard Schwartz in the 1980s. I am not a certified therapist or anything like that, or an IFS. I've studied this a lot and worked with a lot of people that teach it as well. And I kind of have my own way of looking at it as opposed to what IFS actually teaches. And I think about it more as like entering my inner kingdom or your
Mm.
queendom or whatever you want to call it. And I like to visualize like I'm sitting on a throne, like in Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings, and there's a long hallway to enter into the castle. I'm up on the throne, and then a village person is coming and they're voicing a grievance. And that village person is myself. It's a part of myself. And all I do is I just listen. Listen and I say, thank you. And when I start to do this, that voice or that thought form starts to soften. I can go as far as giving that voice or thought form a name to be like, oh, hey, homie, like you're back again. Okay, I see you. What do you have to say? Okay,
Mhm.
cool. Thank you so much. And, it's a really profound practice. And there's so much more to say about parts work, but that it helps me to get to a point of surrender. So that's the second phase, which is all about feeling.
Mm. Yeah, so good. So good on so many levels. That the parts work, also people call it like inner child work. It's just really witnessing what's showing up. And I love how you actually put yourself in a space and witness what that emotion even looks like, right? As it's approaching you. Um, because, psychologically also us being able to separate ourselves from that deep emotion and see it for what it is very empowering and powerful as well. So that was amazing, Sam, you describing that. Yeah, so we finished on the accept and surrender, which is really important. What about the transform into um is it
Empowering
experience?
beliefs. Yeah, so the next we've done the shadow work, the first two phases, the first four steps, it's all shadow work. I like to say now we've earned the right to get into the positive stuff, right? Because we've done our shadow work, we've accepted, we've surrendered. Now it's time to transmute it. It's time to transform it. Phase 3 is all about thinking intentionally. So this next step, the fifth step in the breath process is the T in breath, transform into empowering beliefs. So this is the time to get into I am statements. As Neville Goddard, a spiritual teacher from the early 1900s would say, and I'm paraphrasing, when we say I will be is to say I am not that. So instead of saying I will be or I want or whatever this type of thing, that's why if you've heard people say I am, that's why we're saying I am statements. So be very mindful of that. The other thing that I need to check myself on is because I have an entrepreneurial background and sales and all of that. It's so easy for me to get into the numbers and be like, I am making X amount of money, which is like irrelevant because the money doesn't matter. We want the money. Why? And for me, a lot of times it's safety, it's support, all these sorts of things, shown appreciation, right? So when I can go to the deeper layer of like, okay, at first, like my empowering belief, like I am making $5,000 for a speaking gig today or whatever thing is, I'm trying to bring this in and whatever. It's like, no, that's not it. Let me go a layer deeper. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, what I think is really helpful for people is since this is a moment to moment practice, easiest thing to do is just do the opposite of whatever that story, that limiting belief was, or whatever came up in the energy being revealed. Like maybe it was something where it had to do with confidence, whatever the specifics were, but it had to do with like having low self-esteem. Your empowering belief being the opposite of that could be, I am whole, capable, I am worthy, any of these things. And that's something that we can breathe into the moment to help us with this 90-second period where our body is processing this more dense emotion. I also didn't mention it before, but like, it's not like we're putting a timer on being like, okay, I got 90 seconds. It's like just realizing like it's 90 seconds. So just giving ourselves a few minutes, and really that's all it takes to self-regulate. So that's step number 5, transform into an empowering belief. Another action item or tip is that when we wake up in the morning and when we go to sleep is when we're naturally in the theta brainwave state. We can also enter theta through breath work, meditation, and other things as well. But if we can start to drift off into sleep, working with our affirmations, and when we wake up, that's a good time because the brain is most receptive to building new neural networks, which is how you break the habit of the old self, by building these new neural networks to create the new version of yourself. And I love what Neville Goddard says about the subconscious and conscious mind. He says that the conscious mind is related to the masculine or the yang energy, while the subconscious mind is related to the yin, the feminine energy, and how they intertwine and interweave together. If you're interested in that, there's a great book he wrote, which I listen to on Audible all the time. I just listened to it again yesterday. It's less than 45 minutes, I think, and it's straight to the point. It's called Feeling is the Secret. I listen to this book all the time. Feeling is the Secret by Neville Goddard. It's incredible, absolute game changer. And the final step, the 6th step of the breath process is H, habits to integrate. I'm an integration guide, helping people integrate, whether it's psychedelic experiences or speaking on stage at conferences, right? Like, don't go home from that conference and be all excited and not do anything. You got to take action. You got to integrate. Same thing with the medicine journey. Anytime, whether it's personal development, which is the conference side, or soul development, which is the medicine side, or anything else that doesn't involve medicine, but feeding your soul, we have to create new habits, routines, and behaviors, and thought forms and feelings. So whatever came up through the shadow work, the energy being revealed, accepting to surrender, there was probably something there that you might need to act on. I can't tell you what that is. No one else can tell you what that is. You know what that is. And now it's time to take action on that, because if you don't integrate this experience and take action, then like I said earlier, that's another way you'll find yourself just continuously coming back to this process. And that's why I say this isn't about adding anything more to your day. It's about cultivating moment to moment awareness, because when you start to apply the 6-step breath process, it's as simple as being like, oh, wow, I feel stressed right now. Let me take some time for myself and go within. Let me just take a few minutes, right? And the more you start to do this, the less you'll have to do it, because now you're cultivating that presence and you're regulating more often. And that is like such a fast pass to feeling better emotionally and mentally, as opposed to layering more things throughout your day to do and checking it off like a to-do list in your masculine as opposed to your feminine. So to recap, 6-step breath process, super simple. First one, breathe to slow down, relax to feel, energy to reveal, accept to surrender, transform into empowering beliefs, H, habits to integrate. Like I said, that is 6 steps. And at first it's like, oh, okay, that's quite a bit, which is why there's 3 themes. Remember, emotions are energy in motion. Our bodies have a 90-second physiological response when we experience that energy that's designed to be in motion. And the 3 themes for when you feel that are breathe, feel, and think intentionally. And that's it.
Ah, yeah, that's a lot. It's really a lot. really good stuff. Although when people, and I can say this for my own practices and things, just as you said so perfectly, Sam, I love the H, the habit, right? Make it a habit, because that's a behavior, just like the pistachios, like you had talked about in the very beginning. We can switch it. We can switch it to where it's not the pistachios anymore that your brain will default to. It'll be the breath. It'll be that awareness of, oh, I'm feeling really heightened right now. I'm going to step back and do this, because you can actually see or feel the difference in your body afterwards. So I love that. I love the habit of to integrate and to journal about it, or reflect even too, just not the doing, but how did I feel afterwards? Oh, I don't feel as, like a scale of 1 to 10. I'm not a 10 anymore. I'm more of a 5 or a 4 now. It's better than a 10. Let's try this again. Let's see what happens. With that curiosity as part of it as well, right? So yeah, that's good stuff. Very easy, right? Remember to breathe, and then remember those steps. Um, and I'm sure people will feel immediate relief. Um, Again, you won't see like rainbows and unicorns at first, but it'll allow to melt those outer layers of tension, to allow that snow globe effect of the thoughts in the mind flying around to start to settle. You might have a few flakes floating around. That's okay. We all do. But you'll feel more centered and settled. And then this will be able to inspire you, right? To do more, to want more in our lives. Yeah, so before we go, can you just, tell us about your new book that's coming out, Overcome the Overwhelm?
Yeah, thank you, April. Overcome the overwhelm, six-step breath process to access inner peace. A lot of this was inspired from one of Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, which is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. That book changed my life last year in 2023. I studied that book. I was just going through my notes of it last night, and I took like meticulous notes. That book was incredible. Yet at the same time, I found it to be like a scavenger hunt. So it was very much like, okay, I need to study this. I need to do all these different things and go here, then go there. And I kind of took his framework along with Neville Goddard, who I mentioned earlier, obviously the breath work that I've learned, and other teachers in modalities such as internal family systems as well, and create my own framework based off of how Dr. Joe's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, helped me so much. But when I was really working with that book last year, I started talking with more people that really loved that book too. And I was like, so how do you like integrate? How do you implement it? And most people didn't. And I let them speak, and pretty much everyone said how I felt. Like it was like a scavenger hunt. So my aim with Overcome the Overwhelm is to make it very straightforward, to be like, this is exactly the steps. Here's your blueprint. Here's even journaling lines within the book. Here's a simple QR code that will take you to a video that will unpack this more for you. Like the whole thing is very cohesive. If I'm funneling it to anything, I'm funneling it to like my coaching or speaking or whatever, which is fine. But like I'm giving you the whole playbook. Whereas like with Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, like obviously Dr. Joe is funneling that to his 7-day events and all the other stuff. We could say maybe that's why it's so hard to navigate. I don't know. But like you get that book, it's drinking from a fire hose and it's amazing. But where I struggled with it, and other people I spoke with as well, is like it was hard to actually integrate and put into practical use. So my goal with Overcome the Overwhelm is like literally like, here's your guidebook. Like this is all you need. Like you're good. If you want to go deeper than me, awesome, let's do it. But you're set. And that's kind of the inspiration behind Overcome the Overwhelm with the 6-step breath process that we just walked through on a high level.
Yeah, that's perfect. Great. Good stuff. I so appreciate you, Sam, being here and just showing up and really being very authentic about your own experiences. And that's how we connect with others, isn't it? Sharing our trials and tribulations and what your experiences have been to help navigate through that. And then you're here to offer support for others who are seeking the same thing. And it's really beautiful work.
Yeah, same to you, April. I know we don't know each other that well, but it's great to meet you, and I can feel that energy in you as well. So thank you so much for how you're showing up and received. Thank you for having me on your show as well.
Great. Perfect. And your website, can you say it really quick for those who are listening right now?
Yeah, it's just my name, samkabert.com, K-A-B as in boy, E-R-T, samkabert.com. All the info's there. There's links to blogs, podcasts, YouTube videos, all kinds of good stuff.
Oh, sounds great, Sam. And I connected with you through LinkedIn as well. So check out Sam on LinkedIn also. So, well, thank you again for being here. I look forward to continuing our expansion together another day, another time. And those of you who are watching and listening, please leave a comment. Let Sam know what you found inspiring, about his story, even, or maybe even share a little bit about what you've been going through and reach out to Sam, through his website to seek more, right, for yourself, because that's what we're all here for. And remember to breathe. That's
Mhm.
great. And remember also to hit like, subscribe, so that way you'll be notified of other amazing guests that I have here. So until next time, my friends, be well.